So the Championship took even more twists and turns with the midweek fixtures that we've just had, and it got me thinking, who are actually the favourites to be going up and down at this point in time? Let's take a look. Guys, welcome back to another video on the channel. I'm really excited to get into this one. We're going to be looking into who are currently the favourites for promotion and relegation, and of course I want to get your guys' thoughts on it. And before we do get into today's video, I'm delighted to say that today's video is sponsored by Football Box UK, so they've been kind enough to send out one of these for us to open in today's video. So they will include a random football shirt from absolutely anywhere in the world, but what I like best about it is you can request before you order it any teams or leagues that you don't want the kit to be from. So I mean, guys, you know me, I'm a Preston fan. If I was to unbox this and there was a Blackpool shirt in there, I'd be pretty disappointed. So in the box, you're guaranteed to get a football shirt with an RRP of £35 or over. The boxes themselves will cost you £30, but you can use discount code BENHD to get yourselves 10% off. So all you need to do to order one of the boxes is message them on any of the socials that are linked down below. That's at Football Box UK, either on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook as well. Tell them what size you'd like the shirt in and any leagues or teams to avoid. So definitely worth checking out. But without any further ado, let's just open this one up. I mean, genuinely, I'm very excited to open this one up. Let's see what we have in here. And do you know what? I think that is an absolute, that's a beauty of a kit. Obviously, we do get some nice little football stickers that come in here as well. We get a nice little message from them. But the Marseille, I mean, that is a clean looking kit. So the kit does come with all the tags so that you can tell it is official and everything like that. Let's actually get it out and see what it is looking like. I mean, I guess you can probably tell by the colour behind me, but blue is indeed my favourite colour. So that right there is an absolute beauty of a kit, I have to say. So if you guys do want to get involved, all the information you need is in the description down below. Remember the discount code BENHD to get yourself 10% off. And if you do order one, tweet me what you actually get in there, because I'm interested to see what you guys are getting. But without any further ado, let's crack on with the video. So if we take a look to the side of me, what the current Championship table's looking like after that hectic midweek schedule we've just had, both at the top and bottom of the Championship, things are getting very close at this point in time. Now the top has started to level out in terms of the amount of games that everyone's played. Swansea really the only exception in there, who've still got 2 games in hand on the teams above them. But at the bottom of the table, it's still pretty mad. I mean, for Birmingham especially, the fact that Rotherham, who are currently the first side out of those relegation places, have 2 games in hand on them. I think we'll start out today by talking about those relegation places, and then we'll gradually work our way up the table. So if we do take a look at the current relegation favourites in the Championship, the 3 that are currently sat in those relegation places are the 3 favourites to go down at this point in time. So Wycombe odds on to go down at this point in time. And let's talk about Wycombe first of all, because they obviously had that game in midweek against Derby County. As you can see here, this is a pattern of their results so far this season. I do think from this point onwards it's going to be a huge ask for this Wycombe side to make up. So they need to make up 10 points at least on the teams above them, and then match them for the remainder of the season. And you know, we can see on screen now they've only won back-to-back games once so far this season. To be fair to Wycombe though, in that particular game the other night against Derby, I thought they got very unlucky in that one with some key decisions that went against them. From Derby's point of view, that definitely wasn't their best performance of the season so far. They were quite sloppy actually. I know that Rooney came out after the match and said he wasn't particularly pleased with the way they played, but they got the result in the end. I do think this one will just be a step too far for Wycombe. After that, and in 23rd in the league at this point in time, we have Birmingham, and I can't believe I'm saying this, but I mean, if we take a look here at their season so far, you can see the drastic tail off that their season has taken since around December time. It's been a truly woeful run of form, and every game feels like sort of like Groundhog Day for Birmingham at the moment. It's the same performance. Lethargic stuff from them going forward. They've only scored 21 goals so far this season, which is the joint lowest in the Championship, and I struggle to see a situation now where Aitor Karanka's still the manager at the end of the season. I think they need to make a change now. They need to get some sort of bounce with the new manager to bring in a few more ideas. Birmingham have just got a couple of things that go their way in this sort of situation. One of them is over the last sort of 5 or 10 years, they've been in this same situation quite a few times now actually, and they've just about managed to get over the line and survive. And the other thing is, compared to some of the other teams who are around the bottom of the Championship at the moment, I still believe in some of the quality that they have in that squad. It's not being unleashed to its full potential at this point in time, nowhere near it in fact. But I can really only see that happening now with the change of manager. And then that last team in the relegation place at this point in time, Sheffield Wednesday, who have been really quite a peculiar side to put your finger on. Now obviously the point deduction is an important thing to take into consideration here, so if we were to disregard that for just a second, they'd currently be sat 18th in the league. Don't get me wrong, it's not been pretty to watch, it's not been, you know, necessarily engaging football, but they have been picking up results, which is, you know, the be-all and end-all for Sheffield Wednesday this season. Survival is the most important thing. What I think could set the tempo for the rest of the season for both Wednesday and Birmingham is the fact that they're meeting this Saturday, so make sure to tune into tomorrow's prediction video to see how I think that game's going to go. It's at Hillsborough, Sheffield Wednesday against Birmingham, in I think each side's biggest game of the season so far. If either team loses that one, that's a killer. Now Rotherham are an interesting one. If we take a look at their run of results so far this season, they picked up at a similar time to Sheffield Wednesday around the start of January. It was that result against Derby which really kick-started them on a decent run of form. Obviously, I'm mostly judging these teams on how they sort of played when they played against Preston, getting to watch them over a full 90 minutes, and on both occasions so far, Rotherham have really impressed me. I think there's a good team spirit there with some really good quality, especially in those midfield areas. There is a level of inconsistency about them, don't get me wrong. I think that's the case with pretty much every team in the bottom half of the Championship. But those two games in hand are going to be very telling, especially for Rotherham. Coventry at this point in time are in danger of slipping into the relegation zone. To be fair to them, I think they've had a real tough run of fixtures lately. If we look at their recent games, they played against a Watford side who have improved lately, a Cardiff side who have picked up under Mick McCarthy, Norwich who have been fantastic and, you know, high flying at the top of the league, and the next two games are up against Brentford and Swansea. So for Coventry, things might get worse before they get better, but I think it's important that they don't lose their heads. I mean, they didn't get off to a particularly great start to the season, but they showed on that run they went on throughout November and December that this is a good team that can compete within the Championship. So as long as they get through these next couple of matches, maybe pick up a point or two, I think we will start to see an upturn in form as the fixture list gets a little bit lighter on Coventry. Now with Coventry, I'm still backing them. Huddersfield, on the other hand, I'm not so sure. I was a big fan of the work they were doing under Carlos Corberán at the start of the season, playing some nice football out from the back and scoring some, actually, you know, some really nice team goals. The thing with Huddersfield, I mean, they've not actually won a match in 2021 yet. I said it in the other video the other day. I'm getting Hull vibes from them in terms of the sharp drop-off in form that we've actually seen from them. If this sort of thing continues, they're only heading one way. I still give Coventry plaudits because they've lost some pretty tough matches this season. Huddersfield lately have lost some very winnable games, and all seemingly games where they actually take the lead and throw things away with their own basic mistakes they're making at the back at the moment. At this point in time, I do worry for Huddersfield. I think there's a real possibility that they could be the side that gets dragged into it. After that, we head to QPR, who I did have similar fears about a month ago, but I mean, look at their recent record. Ever since the signing of Charlie Austin, since he came in to the squad for that Luton game, they've been absolutely brilliant. It was another massive performance and result for them in midweek, beating Brentford by 2-1. Austin with another goal for his tally this season, and yeah, fair play to Mark Warburton, because there were questions that were being asked of him. I think rightly so at the time. It was a team who was slightly underachieving, but it is a team that is going through a bit of a transitional period at this time, similar to a few others who are in this region of the table. Obviously, they lost a big player in Eze during the summer. Asai Samuel went in January as well. I think that signing of Austin should get them over the line, though, because they have looked a lot more sharper in those sort of areas now. When it comes to Nottingham Forest, I don't think they'll go down this season. I think if you can look at their record there since mid-January, to be honest with you, Chris Hughton's obviously had quite the impact at that club. They've been hard to beat and have actually only lost 2 games in the Championship since mid-December, which is a really solid record to have. What they've struggled with is, I mean, they've not always been the easiest team to watch on the eye, and for goals at times they've been a little bit harder to come by, but I thought they got a little bit unlucky, to be honest, in midweek with that loss against Swansea. They obviously lost that one quite late on. They were really solid and resolute in that game against Bournemouth as well, the goalless draw they had in that one. So yeah, I don't think that Forest will go down. It may end up being a bit of a boring mid-table season, but I'm sure the Forest fans will take that, given where they were at the start of the season. When it comes to Derby County, similar story to Forest really. Awful start to the season, but you have to give their new manager Wayne Rooney real plaudits for how they managed to turn things around lately. They're now only 5 points off 12th in the Championship, which seemed like an absolute, you know, universe away at the start of the season. But yeah, the obvious upturn in form can be seen there by their results. Midweek against Wycombe by no means was their best performance of the season so far, quite a sloppy one actually, but they got the result there, which is more than they've done in a lot of those other sort of games so far this season against the teams below them. So yeah, Wayne Rooney proving a lot of the doubters wrong, really. I think he showed a good bit of tactical nous about himself so far, actually. I think that long term and going into next season, Derby should be quite excited with the future under Rooney. Luton, I think, will be fine this season. I think what their form shows there is a typical sort of mid-table championship club, which is a good progression from Luton and where they were last season. I think the most amount of games they've lost in a row in the championship is 2 games, which is decent. If that record carries on for the rest of the season, they continue chipping away at those wins and get a few draws in there as well. I think it'll be another good solid season for Luton and an improvement on last time. Bristol City obviously recently departed with manager Dean Holden. Ultimately, I think that's the right thing. I mean, you can see to the side of me that horrific run of form that they've been on. I mean, they flirted with the idea of the playoffs at the start of the season, but I don't think that anyone really took them ever too seriously. I think that with Holden, it was always going to be a bit of an experimental year, and with the amount of injuries they picked up, I think Bristol City will just be writing off this season, really, hoping to get those players back for the next season when they can really attack things. Now, I've seen a couple of people talking about maybe them being dragged into a relegation battle. If this current run of form was to continue for, you know, the next month, then we'd definitely be having that conversation. But yeah, I'm not there with Bristol City yet. I think they will come good again eventually. Maybe not good again, but they'll at least pull their finger out to pick up a few results. But it's all very much dependent on who their next manager is. After that, we then get to North End, where it's just been a very inconsistent season for us so far. I don't think we've got any chances of making it into the playoffs. I think what you can see on screen there is just a pattern of a very inconsistent team so far this season, who really hasn't drawn a lot of football matches. It's always been from one extreme to the other in terms of winning and losing. But I still back Alex Neil as the right man for the job. It was a bit of a frustrating performance in midweek against a good Watford side. Defensively, I thought we were quite good. We limited them to quite a few chances, but going forward, we didn't really have that spark about our play. I think that given the circumstances within the club at the moment, with the amount of players that have left and come in, I'm okay with being mid-table this season, really, and ultimately I think that will be the case for us. With Blackburn, I can't help but feel like maybe they would have had a few more loftier ambitions at the start of the season. They're currently slap bang in the middle of the table, but that squad is easily, you know, worthy of competing within the top 6, and it looked on a few occasions this season like they would be doing that. You know, they started the season off like an absolute house on fire with the amount of goals they were scoring. Right now, Blackburn fans, let me know down below what's your verdict on Tony Mowbray, because it's been an alright season so far, but I can't help but feel like this was the year to go one step better. Millwall are a side who have really turned their fortunes around lately, to be fair to them, so fair play, unbeaten now in their last 6 matches. There was one point where a few questions were starting to be asked of Gary Rowett in terms of where this Millwall side was actually heading, and at one point it looked like they may even be dragged into a relegation scrap, but now comfortably back in the top half of the championship, where I think this team should be in terms of some of the quality within there. Another win for them in midweek, which will serve them well. Barnsley might just be the best club in the championship for their recruitment of managers. They got it absolutely spot on with the last few managerial appointments. Obviously, we mentioned when Gerhard Struber departed in October. That could be the thing to really derail Barnsley this season. Obviously, he did some fantastic work with them to keep them up last season, but this season Ishmael's really taken them on to that next level. He's got a win percentage there of 56% so far, which is absolutely staggering. In comparison, Struber had a win percentage there of 35%, so it really shows the work that he's done and the foundations that he's laid tactically, and he's been absolutely brilliant so far. Do you know what? Barnsley, with a game in hand, still could be a bit of a dark horse for the top 6. It was a big win for Stoke in midweek. They just about got past Sheffield Wednesday, beating them by 1-0, their first win in their last 10 matches, which is absolutely crazy. Still just about within range of the playoffs. I think there's a 7-point gap between them and Bournemouth at this point in time. Obviously, their start to the season has served them very well. I think they will just about fall short this season. I think there'll probably still be one too many draws in there from now until the end of the season. Still been an improvement on last season, but just, yeah, a little bit short, I think. And then when it comes to Middlesbrough, I think they're in a similar sort of life cycle to Stoke at the moment, where it's been a big improvement on last season. I think that on the whole, Neil Warnock's done a good job so far with this Borough side, and even, you know, they were pretty good at the start of the season, actually. They went on a really good unbeaten run where they were, you know, defensively excellent. A bit more inconsistent in the second half of the season so far, but I'd probably say, like Stoke, they may just be a year away from properly breaking into that top 6, especially with the quality that's in there at the moment. But one side who I think is ready to make the top 6 is Cardiff. I mean, they showed it last season. In many ways, this season has sort of taken on a similar path to last season, whereby they started out the season quite poorly, they were underperforming, the manager's gone ahead and left, a new manager comes in, gets that new manager bounce, and they may be on the verge of sneaking into the top 6 at the moment, especially if one of those sides above them continues to falter. Now, when it comes to Cardiff, if they want to match their point tally from last season of 73 points, they'll need to pick up 30 points now from now until the end of the season, which averages out at around about 1.8 points per game for the rest of the season. That will require their form to stay consistently high for the rest of the season, but it is doable, especially with the players that they've got in that squad. I predicted Cardiff to finish in the top 6 at the start of the season. I think we were all surprised by how bad they were on average they actually looked in those early stages. But listen, Mick McCarthy's got them playing at the moment. It was another win for them in midweek. I'd be interested to know how many of you guys are backing Cardiff for the playoffs at this point in time. And actually getting into the sides currently sat in the top 6. So first of all, we have Bournemouth, who were that side who was looking like the most likely to drop out of the top 6. They were looking like they were starting to falter, but Jonathan Woodgate, to be fair to him, has started to sort of shore things up. They've not been overly convincing, I'd say, so far with their performances, but the results have slowly started to turn around. Now, interestingly enough, it doesn't look like Jonathan Woodgate is in the running for the managerial job, and it's looking like Thierry Henry is the front runner. Bournemouth fans, I want to get your take on this one in the comments down below, because I'm really mixed on it. Obviously, there were quite a few big names being linked: John Terry, Frank Lampard, and now Thierry Henry as well. So yeah, Bournemouth fans, what do you think of that one? After that, we get to Reading, who got a good win for themselves in midweek, beating Bristol City after back-to-back defeats in the Championship. It's important that that sort of thing doesn't snowball and lead into something a little bit more disastrous, because I think if anyone was to drop out of the top 6, most people would be looking at Reading and Bournemouth at this point in time. I think that the teams above them are all looking pretty secure. I know that Watford have had their wobbles throughout the season, but there's just so much star power and quality in that team that I think they'll get over the line regardless, whereas a bad run for either Reading or Bournemouth between now and the end of the season, someone like Cardiff could definitely capitalise, but still going about their business fairly well. Interestingly, so far this season, Reading have scored more goals than Watford and Swansea. It's that defensive record which has just let them down at times so far this season. Then when it comes to Watford, do you know what? I still wouldn't completely rule them out of the race for the top 2. If Brentford continue to falter and maybe Swansea fall off a little bit, Watford will be the next team in line to capitalise on that. Now, they've still got a fantastic home record, and actually since the turn of the new year have been on a very good run of form. As you can see here, they've only lost a couple matches in 2021, but it's looking more now like they've finally found the formula which works for them. Obviously that 6-0 against Bristol City was a huge confidence boost. Away from home is where they've struggled so far, but I think that that result in midweek against my club North End will go a long way in fixing that. Obviously not the prettiest performance by either team. It was a lot of Watford sort of probing around our box for that one. In the end, the penalty won it for them, as it has done on quite a few occasions so far this season. But yeah, I still trust in the quality there that it would be a dangerous game to write off Watford at this stage of the season, I'd say. Next up then to Swansea. Now, in many ways, this has been the perfect week of football for them, because if you were to ask me maybe a week ago who were my personal favourites to be sneaking into the top 2 come the end of the season, I probably still would have just about sided with Norwich and Brentford. But with Brentford now losing back-to-back games in the Championship, I'm suddenly not too sure, you know, and with Swansea having 2 games in hand on the teams above them, should they win those 2 games, they'll be top of the Championship. So the Championship race for promotion this season is going to be absolutely fascinating. If we disregard the cup game against Man City, Swansea haven't lost a game in the Championship since the 16th of December. They've been on absolute fire, and they've just not been conceding goals at all. 15 goals conceded at this point in the season is an absolutely remarkable record, and a testament to how well drilled this Swansea side actually is. Midweek wasn't the prettiest performance by any means, but they got the 3 points over the line in the end, 1-0 against Forest. Swansea, they're doing very well. I think they will be fancying their chances a lot more after how this week's gone. And then when it comes to Brentford, this is why the Championship is just so unpredictable. They're coming off the back of one of the best and longest unbeaten runs in the Championship. They hadn't been beaten since the 24th of October, to suddenly losing 2 consecutive games in the Championship against Barnsley and QPR. I didn't see that QPR result coming in midweek, by the way, but they really pulled it out the bag in that one, obviously. Brentford taking the lead, Ivan Toney with another goal this season, but mentally, it'll be very interesting to see how they pick themselves up from this over the next couple of matches, because they do have some quite winnable games coming up for Brentford now, and I do anticipate them to come good. There's too much quality in that squad for them not to. And then to finish off today's video, the team currently sat top of the tree is Norwich, and probably fancying their chances quite a bit at the moment with how the rest of the Championship is unfolding. I think that with Norwich, one thing that we really can't afford to underestimate is the experience of promotion that's already in this squad. You know, at the core of things, it's still very much the same team, the same manager that's already there, the same people behind the scenes as well at Norwich, and I think they've acted quite well in this whole situation actually, in terms of how they dealt with the transfer window, in terms of keeping hold of key players and things like that. And if you look at the season so far, I mean, we sort of touched on it, saying how Norwich have had like a recent bit of a wobble, but it really only is that. I mean, since the 2nd of December, Norwich have only lost 2 matches in the Championship, which is still a fantastic record for a team who we said might be having a bit of a wobble recently. But another result for them in midweek, beating Coventry by 2 goals still. Yeah, I think they will still be most people's favourites to be going up. And if we do take a look to the side of me, who are the current favourites for promotion, it is Norwich leading the way. Interestingly enough, Brentford still beating off Swansea in terms of that second favourite to be going up at this point in time. I'd be interested in you guys how you'd separate those two. After that, we've then got Watford, Bournemouth, Reading, Barnsley, Cardiff and Middlesbrough all still within the shout. So yeah, I'd be interested in from you guys, who's your current top 6 and bottom 3? Do get them in the comments down below. But apart from that, guys, that will now wrap it up for today's video. So thanks so much for sticking around and watching. If you did go on to enjoy, make sure to leave a like. It is always massively appreciated. Make sure to subscribe as well for a bit of regular Championship content. But apart from that, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you all in the next one.